Now that everything is marked, we're ready to start the piecing. And I've just taken 2 of these so it'll be easier to see. The others are stacked over here. What we're going to do is, remember, this is the outside point and this is the center star. We're going to take this one, the outside one, and flip it over, and we're going to stitch around along this line. So let me turn it this way, and let me zoom in and show you how we're going to match these seams. For this, we're going to take a pin, and this is the line we marked on one end. You can barely see it, I'm sorry, in this. Let me just mark it. Use my pen, and I'll just mark it over. Okay. So I'm going to, where the mark meets the seam, the stitching line, I'm going to put my pen right in there. And if I flip it over, I see it's right in the ditch between the 2 fabrics. Okay. Now I'm going to come to this next one, and I'm going to guess right now how much is a 1/4 inch down from here. And I'm going to put my pin in and flip it over, and I'm landed somehow right on the marked line. So where this line is marked and right along the seam allowance or the seams, and this is in the ditch between the 2 fabrics. So we take our pin now, or our fabrics, and we're going to first line up these top edges. We want to make them even. So we have that. The top edges are even right across here. But look at the pin, how the pin is laying down. If we look at it from this angle, the pin is going in, it's at an angle. And that means if we look inside here, that those lines are not going to match up. So we need to scooch it over until the line, the pin, is perpendicular with the fabric. It's going this way. Now the pin is perpendicular and the tops are lined up. So we just place the pin inside like that and pin the 2 together. Now when we take this to the machine, we're going to first start at this end here. I want to show you how to line up this end when you go to the machine. These edges are lined up, and you're going to start stitching right here where the V is, right there. And the reason we do that, we have to make sure that this is a 1/4 inch. So if I line my 1/4 inch up here, and I see that it comes right here where that V is, and that's where you want to start your stitching. So if I take my pen and mark a line right there, that's where I will stitch. And that is a 1/4 inch from the outside edge. Okay? So you take this to your machine, you start there and you stitch a 1/4 inch down. When you get to this point here, right where the needle has entered the fabric, you want your stitching to go right over that. This is as close as I can zoom in, but right here where the needle goes into the fabric, it's the same place where you marked, and it's the same place where these stitching lines intersect with your marked line. So everything comes together there, and that's how your points are going to come out. And then you continue stitching till you get to this other edge, and here you'll have your same 1/4 inch. If I place my ruler here, I see that the fabric, it ends just a little bit over, so let's just move it over just a little bit. Let's see if we can't make it work. So there it is, just a little bit is all it needed, and it's right there. So this is the 1/4 inch mark right there. And as you're sewing, when you start here, you concentrate on starting correctly. Once you've started and have a few stitches here, then you concentrate on keeping your 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you concentrate on stitching right where that pin enters the fabric. Now I always take my my pin out right at the last minute. And sometimes it helps if you pull it out like this, the other side, and just leave it like this until you get right there with your needle, and then take your pin out. Once you've stitched over here, you just continue stitching at 1/4 of an inch. Then you start concentrating on stitching into this V. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here's one I stitched and I pressed. Now when you press these, you're going to press these. If this is your star point, your outer point, up at the top, you're going to press this seam to the left. Before we do that, I want to show you how you can check to make sure everything is sewn as perfect as you can possibly get it. First, we'll take a look at our points. And here we see our nice points are meeting, and they came out very nice. The next thing you're check, this is your seam line here. So we're going to check either end of the seam line. And if we look here, I see I have a few threads sticking up there, but it's nothing major, so I'm not worried about that. You should try to get a straight line all along this edge. Okay, and so we check the other edge, the other end of it, and we should have a straight line as well. Now this one's already pressed, but if we put our straight edge here, we see that that line is pretty straight. And while we're here, we're going to cut this nub off. I call those nubs because that's what I was taught. We just cut it off with the rotary cutter because that will just get in the way later on when we're trying to piece it. And the reason we press toward the left, I'll show you now. Here's the finished block we started with. And if we turn this over, now the center of my star did not come out as I expected. I had to trim off some, so that was a little snafu, but it is very flat otherwise, and we'll try to get a better star center in the one we're piecing now. But I wanted you to look at how the pressing goes. All of these seams where this 4 diamonds, this piece, are stitched together, all of these seams you see go in a counterclockwise direction. And that helps the block lay flat. So if we press all of these to the left when we stitch these together, you will get that clockwise direction from the back. So now you'll take all 8 of these pairs and stitch them together just as I showed you here. And after you stitch it, then press them to the left. And after you press, check your ends to make sure you have nice straight edges and trim off the nub. Then we'll be ready to start piecing them together.